you have a Cancer signature, be it either fourth house, Cancer, the moon, involved in the karmic axis, you're going to find that the trauma did happen in childhood, in past lives. And so it's necessary to go back and work with those wounded child selves because they will be reflected in the current life. So it's not only your own past life childhoods, but it's also any experience around birthing, mothering, mother-child, right? And oftentimes we find in souls' histories that if, for example, you're constellated around the Cancer archetype, that you've had experiences and woundings on all sides of those, right? So you've been the abandoned child, and then you've been the mother that abandoned the children, and then you've been, you know, it's all sides of that. Because to me, mature souls experiment, this is what Jung talked about, polarity of opposites. When you get into certain mature states, if you want to call it that, of evolution, the soul has experimented with so many different facets of the same archetype, because that is what it's trying to do. It's trying to experience all the different facets. Somebody said something before about the perpetrator-victim complex, right? And that's what I was saying. It's simply a complex. There isn't a value judgment on either side of it, right? It's simply a soul experiment, and the way it imprints in our psyche is as a complex. So, in this chart, we have pretty clear Cancer signatures. Gee, can anybody pick out the Cancer karmic signature in this chart? So we have a moon conjunct the south node, right, a Scorpio south node, in the fourth house. Sorry?
I was just going to say the nodal axis sun-moon.
Yeah, the sun-moon, it's squared by the archetype of Cancer as well, the nodes, right? Jupiter here, squaring this out. So it's a pretty powerful Cancer signature, Cancer Capricorn signature. This woman came to me because, and for fertility issues, and this picks up a little bit where we left off in second house in Taurus. So we have a double signature of fertility. It's the womb and it's the conceiving, right? So you have Taurus and Cancer in the karmic axis. She came to me for fertility issues. She had been doing in vitro fertilization with no success. So she had had a tubal ligation pregnancy early on. I guess a pregnancy attaches within the tube, and she had to have that removed. But they said she would still be able to conceive if the egg was implanted, but it couldn't. She didn't have fallopian tubes, I believe. So she had to do in vitro. Well, in vitro is really expensive. It's something like $10,000, $15,000 a pop, and she had done it twice and to no avail. So before she was and her and her husband really wanted one. They really wanted a child. And so when she came to me, you know, of course I explored those psychological issues of, is there something in the marriage or the relationship that might stop some incoming soul from being with them? Because, you know, you have to explore that, and there wasn't. There really didn't seem to be. It seemed to be a clear, somatic, right, karmic issue with womb and fertility, and that's kind of in the chart there anyway. So one past life that we did was a death in childbirth. And need I say more? I mean, again, this stuff is, like we say, you can't make this stuff up. It's pretty literal. Yes?
Can you speak to the moon in Scorpio by itself, not conjunct the south node there?
Why would I do that? Can I? But why would I do that?
Is there anything significant about it?
Anything significant about in this chart?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say as it relates to her karmic attitude that she's bringing into this life, giving life to a child means death. Giving birth to a child means death. To her, that was the imprint. She's blocked. Right? I mean, she died in childbirth, and she imprinted something about birthing means death, right? Life and Scorpio's life and death scenarios, right? And it's all constellated around the womb and childbirthing. So that was just one layer of it, was working with that past life. And then we worked with, actually I'm telling them out of order, but I can recap that. The first life that I worked with her was, she was a tribal woman, and picking up on Africa and lions and all of that stuff. I make two archetypal associations. It's not geodetic equivalent, but archetypal associations with Africa always show up for me in the past life work in Cancer and Leo. And Cancer, they show up in Cancer because Africa is the birthplace, the mother, the homeland of humanity. And Leo is, of course, the kind of the sun and the lion and all of that. But it's also the pride and dignity of the African people. They're very Leonian, right? So I see that often show up, and it correlates in people's past lives when they have that signature. Quite frequently, they have African past lives. So she was an African woman in a tribe, and it wasn't a really elaborate, long story. She was about 4 months pregnant, and a neighboring tribe invaded them and captured her, and they wanted to use this growing fetus for some ritual magic purposes, Scorpio Taurus, and they captured her, brought her to their tribe, and I mean, it really happened so fast, you know, and we're kind of talking the levels of shock because it did happen very fast. I was just looking to see if I had that. No. They captured her. They brought her to a fire, cut her open, took out the baby, did whatever ritual thing they did, and threw the baby on the fire. So she was still alive when she saw this happen, but died. You know, they just basically, it was like, you know, used parts pretty much. They just cut her, took it out, left her there to die, did what they needed to do with the infant, the fetus, and then threw it in the fire. And so she watched this, and the thing was she was horrified by the fire, obviously in shock and trauma and just kind of staring. So again, as you know from seeing the regression last night and what I talked about, how these parts of us get stuck in these bardos, that's where that part of her soul was, just kind of staring into the fire, horrified, watching the child burn. So when I worked with her in the afterlife, I asked some African mothers to come in, some tribal women that she might have known from that life earlier. And they came in, it was really quite beautiful, they came in carrying the spirit of the child, right? Like bringing, and the child was very radiant, and it was very like, you know, I wanted you to be my mother. I think there were some stories between them about times that they had not been able to be together, and again, you have that separation, Scorpio, loss of each other, right? The moon, again, moon and Scorpio could also be loss. They've been unable to complete, right, being together as mother and child, and the child was basically saying, I'll come back to you. So the spirit of this child was saying to her, so this was, what's funny about this is she was this really white-bread Westport, I live in Fairfield County at the time, Westport woman, you know, it's where Martha Stewart and Paul Newman live, right, very like white bread. And these African spirits are saying to her, we will help you heal this. We will help you to facilitate the birth of this child. Honor us because we're your ancestors. It's basically what they were saying. We're your spiritual ancestors. Honor us through drumming, and we will help you conceive this child. So afterwards, you know, I told her, well, I know of some drumming circles, you know. And I said, you know, will you really do that? Will you honor what these spirits said to you? And she said, yes, I will. And she went to some drumming circles, and she did the in vitro, and it took. And the baby came in. I know, it was really quite beautiful. So that was a completion. So again, when you look to the North Node, it's almost like there was something about her needing to make this conscious effort. And you know, she and her husband did prove, basically, as her North Node in the 10th house is showing, they proved, we really want this child. We're responsible. We're really stepping up, and we really want that. So I think they had already taken those actions, you know. So it was go ahead.
There's Jupiter in the 12th house, and obviously it's a skip step integrating via the North Node, but 12th house Jupiter in Cancer, the African spirits, the faith, the secret clan in the 12th house, the Jupiter principle, people are sometimes watched over, or
I have Jupiter in Pisces in the 12th, and I can't tell you how many times that guardian angel pulled me right out at the last second. I mean, it's like grace in action. Yeah, and so that is definitely that. That's like, to me, that's a grace signature too. Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, that the grandmothers, because it was the African grandmothers that came, you know, and they're like, we're your ancestors. And, you know, that's another thing. On both Cancer and Capricorn, I see ancestry, right? And I see the influence of ancestry. And I think in Cancer, you get it again through the womb, right? The ancestral spirits are already active, you know. Don't they say that the egg of the female, they're all fully formed while you're in the womb of your mother. So it's all your lineage is coming through. It's already there. It's already decided, right? And the male brings that spark, whatever he brings. It's all already there, you know, whatever he does. I don't know. Some insignificant little thing. Yeah, I know. Hey, yeah. We're sick of this patriarchal bullshit. I mean, let's call a spade, okay?
But we don't want any complexes here, gentlemen, because in past lives, you were women, we were men, so no blame, no shame.
Right. And we're talking about gender switching, right? Cancer, Capricorns, what Kim Marie was talking about this morning. So I forgot where I was. In Cancer, it's that kind of, the spirit lineage, you know, that's coming through. And so the ancestors are imprinting in that way. In Capricorn, it's like the tradition, you know, so you get the ancestral traditions, and those are the things that are archetypally, I'm not going to say that it's literal because it often isn't literal, but archetypally brought through the father archetype. Right? You know, he's the one that teaches you how to be. The mother teaches you the inner world. Cancer, the emotional, the inner world. The father teaches you the outer world. When you start to come of age and you start to come out into the world, father shows you how society works, how to be a citizen, what are the traditions, the structures, the rules. Right? He's the model of that. So, to me, I get ancestry on both of them. Okay. So basically, that's all I have for her. Certainly with Pluto in Cancer, or Pluto in the 4th house, or the South Node in Cancer, or part of any of the karmic signature, you know, again, it's those nurturing needs that haven't been met in past lives. So they can come in, they can be displaced, they can come in and have either shut down their emotional needs, or they can be overly needy. And I've had both kinds. Our reaction to trauma, you know, you can't ever say this is the way that this particular traumatic reaction, somebody reacts to a particular trauma. Some people will react and deny that they have needs, and some people will just